So welcome to the latest edition of You Are My Boro from the Northern Echo with myself, Scott Wilson and Dom Shaw. You well, Dom?
I am, Scott. How are you?
I'm very well. And we're able, of course, to reflect on what was a historic afternoon at the Riverside as Reading were put to the sword at the weekend. So we'll have a chat about that. We'll talk about a few of the issues that came out of the game and are bubbling along a little bit this week. We'll have a look at how that leaves the Championship standing. Obviously, Boro don't play this midweek, but there are Championship midweek matches, so we'll touch on them and then we'll throw it right at the end ahead to this weekend's game at Swansea. But, Dom, you were at the Riverside on Saturday. A day of history, a day for the history books.
Yeah, it was one of them where before the game, we were told that if Boro had scored 3 goals, they equalled last season's tally. Yeah. Then obviously you're aware of Chuba needing one to get 20, but then it all happened very quick. Obviously Chuba got his penalty in the first half, then in the second half there was the early flurry, and Reading just had absolutely no answers. Boro blew them away, really. It was really impressive. And just another statement win, isn't it? And 21 goals for Chuba, which is some achievement.
I mean, there've been big wins this season, and obviously recent ones, Bramall Lane being the obvious example, but probably one of the boxes that hadn't been ticked was a real thumping of a team at home in front of the home fans. And that's obviously arrived now, hasn't it? Because they hadn't really done that before Saturday.
No, and Saturday felt like not just a case of being wise after the event. I think Saturday felt like that could have been the case if Boro scored early. If they hadn't scored early, then you sensed, what we talked about last week. It could have been one of those really ugly ground out 1-0s. But Reading, Paul Ince was furious at the penalty decision, and then he felt that they should have had one a moment later when Shane Long went down. Even if Reading had gone 1-0 up, though, and stuck 10 men behind the ball, you fancy Boro had just had too much craft for them and too much class and would have brought them down. And like you say, it just builds that momentum, doesn't it, to win in that fashion, really, to truly hammer a team and sends out a message. And it could have been more. Boro could very easily have got 2 or 3 more goals. And the thing is, when you look at the table, and we're going to talk about it, aren't we, how tight it is?
Yeah.
There's every chance that goal difference is going to play a part.
Well, exactly. It could be worth, it could be clearly it's potentially worth a point, isn't it? And they are catching right up now.
Yeah, and it's Blackburn's goal difference +1, which I was...
Yeah, which is incredible, isn't it?
Yeah,
absolutely incredible.
It reminds me of that Huddersfield team. Was it the Huddersfield team that went up with minus goal difference? Yeah. They're a funny team, Blackburn, aren't they? I keep waiting for them to fall away, and they're just not.
Yeah, I mean, we'll get to the table in a minute, but yeah, Blackburn are a funny team because it's like you said, they had that wobble, and you thought, okay, well, the wheels have come out, and they never seem to. They never blow teams away. They never, you watch them, they never seem to play that well. But I mean, I think it's something like 3 of the last 5 they've won 1-0, which is probably where they're at the minute. But if you're winning 1-0, you're winning 1-0. There's nothing wrong with that, is there?
No.
Boro, of course, way more than that at the weekend. I mean, we can't not talk about Chuba. I know we seem to do it every video, every podcast. But I mean, to be the man who beat Burnley, the first one since way back when to get past the 20 goal mark. And, you touched on it when we were speaking to Steve Crossman at the back end of last week. But if you just list off the number of strikers, world-class strikers who have played in good Boro teams as well, in that intervening period, but haven't made it to 20 goals. That's staggering, really, but B, it kind of underlines just how good Chuba's been this season, doesn't it?
Absolutely. And afterwards, we spoke to him afterwards, and he was saying how he isn't really processing it. He isn't really taking it in. He's just kind of enjoying it. And there might come a stage at the end of the season where he takes a step back and thinks, wow, look what you've achieved this season. But Jimmy Floyd is one who he name checked, a striker who he looked up to, and obviously he's one who's came and gone without breaking 20 in a league season. And I think the most remarkable thing is, had you said in the summer that someone's going to score 20 goals for Boro this season, Chuba Akpom would have been nowhere near.
It would have been Muniz, probably, wouldn't it?
Yeah, and he said the same.
And look what's happening.
Yeah, and Akpom said again at the weekend, I expected to be leaving in the summer, and obviously I'm glad I didn't. I enjoyed as well when he scored his first goal, his 20th, the nod to Bernie when he stood up on the advertising hall.
Yeah, we've had some brilliant pics of that in the paper this week.
Yeah,
it was a nice touch, wasn't it?
Some great pictures as well with the kids kind of looking up to him, kind of symbolic pictures, really. But and then he got his second, and obviously he could have had his third, but let Marcus Force take it. And I was only looking at the weekend. Force is on 8 goals. Well, Boro's last top scorer last season was 10. Crooks.
Yeah.
And when you think Force didn't really play for the first couple of months and has then played right wing since, that's a very good return as well from him, isn't it?
Just one on Chuba. I mean, we've both spoken to him at various stages of the season and in his kind of journey through the season. He feels in a very, very different place when you speak to him now, doesn't he? Understandably, at the start of the season, he just hadn't, he hadn't been around English football for a while. He hadn't been around Boro for a while. The first time I remember speaking to him, he felt a little bit like he was a rabbit in the headlights after the game, doing the radio stuff, doing a bit of TV, doing us. Now, he's in a very different place, and he's bound to be, isn't he? I mean, the world's his oyster, really, if he continues playing like this.
Oh, yeah. I mean, he was giving it the choo-choo with Mark Drury from BBC Two.
There we go.
And the thing that I've noticed, and he said in just about every interview, or certainly every interview I've seen or heard or been there this season, he's talking about how he's just always wanted to be part of something, really.
Yeah.
And when you look at his career, what did he have? 7 loans?
It's very, very difficult.
Nomadic existence, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Now he's settled, and he's obviously benefiting from that.
And we'll go on and talk about kind of the loan players as a whole in a second. But obviously, Aaron Ramsey, the other player who got a couple at the weekend, and he now is a genuine, massive option in there, isn't it? It's another part for Carrick to have to juggle around, but obviously it's exactly what you want. And it hasn't taken him long to find his stride, has it?
No, or to get fully fit, because he only had his knee surgery in December, didn't he? And when Boro signed him in January, you kind of think, well, how long is it going to be until we see him up to speed? But he certainly looked to be the case on Saturday. I thought he took his first goal really well. And his second as well. I just think he provides something a little bit different to Force. He's more of a natural winger, isn't he? But he's fast and direct. And Cameron Archer as well. Archer for the first goal. You've seen him do this a lot, where he doesn't look particularly strong, but his upper body strength, he shrugs big, strapping centre halves off, and he did it in the build up to the first goal, in which Ramsey won the penalty. Those two, Boro are reaping the rewards, I think, of those Aaron Danks relationships, because those two both looking like shrewd. And, if you look at every kind of promotion-winning team, or certainly a lot of promotion-winning teams from the Championship, the best teams do utilise the loan market well, don't they?
They do.
Feels like Boro have done that this year.
It can be a bit of a double-edged sword, which we'll get onto in a minute with kind of what happens next. But, I mean, just on the three then, so Ramsey and Archer, obviously, from Villa, Giles from Wolves. I mean, what does it say, first of all, that, the three of them are looking like three of the best players in the Championship at the moment? Not just in the Boro squad, in the Championship. And yet, mid-table Premier League teams are willing to get rid of them because they don't think they're going to get anywhere near their squad. I mean, is that, in the wider context, that's not necessarily a great look, is it? That they're head and shoulders above most of what else you get in the Championship. And yet Wolves and Villa have looked at that. I know they're young players. I take that. They're in a development stage. But still, that's an illustration of the gulf, isn't it? And if Boro are going to get to the Premier League, that's the gap that they're going to have to deal with.
Yeah, I think Archer and Ramsey are both, Villa would both class Archer and Ramsey as players with first team potential. Certainly. I mean, Archer's been knocking on the door for a while, hasn't there?
They underheard about sending him, in fairness, didn't they?
Yeah, and there's been questions, hasn't there?
But he didn't get in really.
No, and there's been questions about whether it was wise to let him go, really. The same with Ramsey. It's that thing with young players. I guess Boro are in the same position with Coburn, aren't they? Are we better off keeping him in the off chance that we might we
Need
might
it.
get a
Yeah.
player, we might need him, we might get a player injured, or do we let him go and see him benefit? Whereas Giles, 23-year-old, he's at the stage now where he needs to be playing somewhere, doesn't he? He's no good kind of going out on another season-long loan next year. You know, he's been to Blackburn in the past, Cardiff, Rotherham. If you look into the summer, you would look and think the chances of making Archer and Ramsey permanent are pretty slim.
Pretty slim.
Yeah. You know, could you get another loan if Boro were to go up? Could you say, well, let's see them benefit from a year playing in the Premier League?
In the Premier League, you would imagine that would maybe be on the table.
But Giles, I mean, you've wrote about Giles today, haven't you? What Carrick said about him when he was asked about him at the weekend.
Yeah, I mean, listen, Boro want to sign him, don't they? There's no pussyfooting around that. Boro want to sign him. Everything that you hear in and around the camp, in and around the squad, is that Giles, if he's going to leave Wolves, it will probably be to Boro. I think even if other clubs come into it, I think the fact he's been here and done so well this season, enjoyed it, feels a part of it. Clearly, what league Boro are in next season will play a big role in that. But certainly, if Boro were to go up, I think Giles would jump at the chance to come, even in the Championship, depending on who else came in for him, maybe. But then it comes down to Wolves, doesn't it? It comes down to what are Wolves going to do. And for the last month or so, the strong suggestions have been if Wolves stay up, they're quite happy with Aït-Nouri and Bueno, two young lads. They've done well this season. Giles, surplus to requirements, make us an offer. The situation becomes a lot more complicated, I think, if Wolves go down, but that doesn't look like it's going to happen, does it? Wolves look like under Lopetegui, they're on the right way. I think they'll stay up. I think that Wolves will sell. I think that then it just depends on what league Boro are in. If Boro are in the Premier League, I think Giles will come at the drop of a hat. If they're not, and Premier League clubs come in for him, then that's a difficult decision, isn't it? That's the one scenario that probably puts Boro behind the 8-ball a little bit.
And the cost as well, isn't it? If Boro don't go up, you would think,
exactly.
what are Wolves going to be able to ask for him? If it's on him, purely on football reasoning, you would expect that he'd want to stay at Boro.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, because he's absolutely been a key player under Michael Carrick. 9 assists now for the season, which is remarkable, really, for a left wing back who for the first 3 months of the season was playing in a struggling team. I think he's been one of the real plus points, and the 2 goals that he laid on at the weekend. I mean, if you're a centre forward playing with that, you can't ask for anything more, can you?
No, I mean his balls in from his delivery from the flanks is as good as there is out there. Question marks over his defending, yeah, maybe, but they're probably question marks. So when you get up in the Premier League on the real big boys, his defending is absolutely fine at Championship level, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. The Brighton game was you saw question marks asked there, but then the Premier League's best defenders are having questions asked by them about them by Brighton at the minute, the way they're playing. So as we've seen since, there's absolutely no disgrace in that result. And you would think that he's come on a lot this year, because it's last year he went to Blackburn on loan, didn't he, and didn't really play much, which is surprising, really, because you look at him and think that he's a Tony Mowbray type of player, really. But he didn't really play as much. Whereas this season has just worked out absolutely perfectly for him, even though he signed thinking he was going to be joining a Chris Wilder team and playing kind of left wing back in a wing back system. Although it's a flat back 4, he is a wing back, isn't he?
Well, and that's where I think that Smith helps him. And I've touched on this before, that I think, in the last couple of years, I think Man City were really the pioneers of it, that you almost play one of your fullbacks effectively as a winger, and the other fullback is much more of a fullback. So example, Walker, Cancelo. You've got Cancelo playing halfway up the pitch. Kyle Walker's perfectly happy to shuffle across and effectively make 3 centre-halves if teams counter. And that's kind of what Boro have now. It's what Newcastle have with Trippier and Dan Burn, exactly the same. That, one goes and then it suits you if your other fullback is a more defensive one who can, as I say, can make 3 centre. And that's worked really well for Boro.
Yeah, and I think it's worked as well to have McGree in front of him, because although McGree has that kind of freedom to roam and he pops up all over, he does have that midfielder awareness of protecting what's behind as well, doesn't he?
Yeah. Yeah. So let's have our weekly chat of where that leaves the battle for promotion, Sheffield United, blah, 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 blah. Obviously, Sheffield United's, do we call it a mini wobble? I think we've got to continue at the weekend. They lost to Blackburn. But they obviously play Reading tonight. At Reading, admittedly, we're recording this very early on Tuesday morning. So it feels like an important game, that, doesn't it? It goes without saying, at this stage of the season, the difference between 4 points and 7 points feels pretty big, because if Sheffield United go down to midday scheme win tonight, A, they kind of stop their wobble, and B, Boro are back to being 2 games behind them before they even get a chance of a shot at it. So obviously all eyes will be on what happens there tonight. But having said that, Sheffield United still have what looks a much trickier running than Boro. So are we back on?
I think so, but then
till next week.
In 24 hours' time, that could change again. 3 defeats in 4 is undoubtedly a wobble, isn't it?
Yeah.
There's no getting away from that. Now, on the evidence of what we saw from Reading at the weekend, you've got to fancy Sheffield United to go there and win. I thought Reading were dire, but it's a home game. It's the first home game since this points deduction was announced last week. It might be a little bit of fight on some occasion. Then again, it's not the hardest place to the most intimidating place to go, is it? But after this, is it? Have they got Luton, Sunderland, Norwich, the 3 games after this? I think that, even if they win tonight and it goes back to 7 points, those 3 games, there's every chance that they might only take 2, 3, 4 points from that, and then it changes again. So I would expect Sheffield United to win tonight, but even when and if they do, I don't think that necessarily means.
I mean, let's stick in cliche territory. Is this cup run getting in the way for them a bit now? Because it feels from the outside like it may be. They had that massive night against Spurs, obviously as Boro did last season. They're into what looks a winnable, potentially quarter-final. They could maybe end up in a semi-final at Wembley. That, does that really help? I know as a football fan, you want it. Of course you do. If Sheffield United get to an FA Cup final, that is absolutely massive for that club, and the fans will have an amazing day out. Yeah, fully accept that. I never understand when teams write off cup competitions, certainly Premier League teams. But, we are in March now. They are having a wobble in the league. I think that could play into Boro's favour, put it like that.
Yeah, I do.
Obviously, the same with Blackburn.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. As you take that every day of the week. If someone offered Boro at the start of this season, FA Cup win or promotion, as a fan, you take the FA Cup win every single day of the week. Yeah. But I don't think the two go hand in hand. I don't think that is helping Sheffield United. They haven't got a huge squad, have they? They've got a decent squad, but not a huge squad. And I think it's bound to take its toll. They've got games in hand to play. That game tonight, for example, that's the last thing you want, really, isn't it? Reading away on a Tuesday night, on the back of a tough game at the weekend and a disappointing defeat. So I always think at this stage of the season, you want points on the board rather than games to play. And I think it's very much on. Burnley are away and gone, aren't they? As we've talked about. Yes. And the interesting one is, a Blackburn. It's 6 points. A Blackburn. I would say not, just on the evidence of what I've seen of them. But then they keep winning.
But they're only 2 points behind Boro. So if we're saying on the same number of games, so we say, admittedly, like you say, a worse goal difference. But if we're saying that Boro are right in it, which I think we are, then I don't think you can completely rule out Blackburn. They would have to put together a remarkable run, but they kind of did that at the start of the season, didn't they? So, yeah, if they could win the next 2 or 3, yes, they're right in it. I think they probably have to, but I don't think you can rule them out. And then, so below Boro, in terms of the playoffs, Blackburn and Norwich were the kind of big winners at the weekend of the teams below Boro. Millwall, a loser. Watford, seem to be just treading water. The team who interests me in all of that at the minute is Coventry. I think they will make the playoffs. And I think with Gyökeres, they are a dangerous team in the playoffs, because for all that Chuba's been incredible, he's hopefully going to finish as top scorer. In terms of an out-and-out number 9, for me, Gyökeres is head and shoulders above anyone else in the league. And he would be a threat. I just think Coventry, they've kind of crept up a bit, because obviously they've been playing catch-up all season with having all them games called off at the start. And, they were bottom of the league, weren't they, when they barely played a game? And yet they're there now. And I think they'll make the playoffs.
Was it 6 years yesterday, I think, Mark Robbins has been in charge there. He's done a remarkable job, hasn't he? When you consider, did he take them up when they were playing at St Andrews?
Yeah.
And kept them up that first year when they were playing there, maybe? I think it's one of those question marks, really, as to why he's never been...
Nobody's come in for him.
Why has nobody come and taken him? Not that Coventry are complaining. And there was one of them at the weekend where when I sat down on Saturday night to have a study of the table, you look at Coventry and think, how far where
they come from. Yeah.
Because, like you said there, when Boro lost to Reading in August, they were second bottom, and the only team below them were Coventry. Now, Coventry had played 2 games at the time. I think Boro had played 5. Obviously, they had all the issues with the pitch.
Yeah.
That makes it all the more remarkable, doesn't it?
It does.
Their first win was the win over Boro, which proved to be Chris Wilder's last game in charge, wasn't it? You think of how things have changed for both of those clubs since then. And I agree with you with Gyökeres. You're only as good as your centre forwards, aren't you? And you absolutely wouldn't put it past them getting in the top 6. And I think Norwich look a threat, because they seem to be finding their stride a little bit.
They play Sunderland at the weekend. I think Sargent's meant to be back for that. So clearly getting those 2 back transforms Norwich, doesn't it?
Yeah. And Luton just keep going about their business, don't they? It's one of them, in it, where we're going to sit here every week between now and the end of the season, and we asked Steve Crossman, didn't we, on Friday, to name his top 6. If we probably got him in now and asked him again, I'm sure he'd say a different 6.
No, completely. Well, obviously this weekend it is Swansea away for Boro. We're going to do hopefully a live video on Friday, so the preview one, hopefully we're going to go live. So don't forget to like and subscribe on YouTube. And also, if you've got any questions for us, either throw them in the comments below the video, or you can tweet myself and Dom, or you can email us anywhere you want. But get your questions in, and obviously comment. You'll be able to comment live on Friday's video and all of that. The plan is that I'm hopefully driving down to Swansea on the Friday, so we should be live from some luxurious travel lodge / Premier Inn / something somewhere near Swansea. Either that or it'll be a service station, because the traffic's horrendous, so we'll see. But early thoughts on Swansea, Dom? I mean, all the cliches with Swansea: play nice football, don't necessarily put the ball in the net enough. Kind of feel like they've run through a bit this season. Feels like a chance for Boro, doesn't it?
Yeah, because you would fancy them. They'll try and play, won't they? And I think that'll play into Boro's favour. And I would fancy Boro to go there and get the job done. When you were going, what's the strip in Swansea? There's that strip.
Wine Street.
You could do the live from there. That could be pretty tasty.
That would be interesting. I'm going to digress here, but I did a Boro game. Or it might have been a Sunderland game. No, it was a Boro game, because the Tees lads were in. It was a Boro game, and it was I'm sure it was a Boro game. It was a Friday night. And it was the same night as the first game of the Six Nations, and it was Wales-England, just across the road in Cardiff.
Right.
And we went out and watched England get absolutely walloped by Wales at the rugby in one of the pubs on Wine Street. And it was honestly like the Wild West. I've never seen... if you've never been to Swansea, basically the whole town is one big strip of bars and restaurants, isn't it? But it's all your Yateses, Wetherspoons, Flairs, God knows what else, and lively. So maybe that's not a bad idea. We'll get that.
It does get lively down there, doesn't it? Yeah, the Tees lads will be out
9 on a Friday night, just as the karaoke starts.
Yeah. No, what do you reckon? I fancy Boro to get the job done.
I do. I mean, chances are that between now and the end of the season, Boro are going to slip up in an away game somewhere that comes a bit out the blue, because that's just the Championship. Boro are not going to win every away game between now and the end of the season. They probably aren't going to win every home game, but there's more chance of them winning every home game than away. So, there'll be a game where, for whatever reason, things go against them. They don't really turn up. They don't get the rub of the green, whatever. It might be this Saturday, but I don't see any reason why it should be. All things being equal, Boro, no new injuries that we're aware of. Obviously, we'll get the chance to speak to Michael Carrick at the back end of the week. We'll see. Not probably that he'll tell us much about them, but we'll see what he says on that. It feels like Boro are just in a really good place. So, yeah, I don't see any reason why they shouldn't go down there full of confidence and win.
No, I agree. I think it has the feel of a game where, as I said, Swansea will try and play against Boro, and I think that'll play into Boro's favour.
Great. So we'll have more of that at the end of the week. As I say, the plan is to do it as a live on Friday. So keep an eye on our social media pages on Friday. We'll let you know, hopefully somewhere about 6-ish, but a little bit dependent on the old traffic skirting around Birmingham and through the valleys and God knows where else. We'll end up with Swansea. Might be about midnight when we do it, but we will do it. We will do it. So keep an eye on that. Send us in your questions, like and subscribe, and hopefully you all have a good week. And we'll speak to you at the weekend for another You Are My Boro.